Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. So I want to try something a little bit different today. I just want to start off with a question straight out of the gate, because here's something I've recognized. I think some of the Sword and Shield alt arts are still undervalued. So my question is, out of all the Sword and Shield alt arts, Battle Styles onwards, of course that's where it started, Battle Styles onwards, what do you think is the most undervalued alt art? Now, I've got a couple of arguments why I think some of them are quite heavily undervalued. I also think maybe some of them are a little bit overvalued, especially as a raw price, but I think some of them are quite undervalued. And I've picked 10 today, so I want to run you through my top 10 most undervalued Sword and Shield alt arts. Now, you would have noticed that particularly some of the Sun and Moon set alt arts, the tag team alt arts, have absolutely gone through the roof lately. Now, I understand they're printed less than Sword and Shield. We should sort of all know that. But I still think there's a strong argument to be had that a fair few of these Sword and Shield alt arts are quite heavily undervalued. Before I jump into the top 10 that I've got, I just wanted to compare it to something. Now, this is sort of where I see Sword and Shield alt arts, not quite in the same league, but pushing towards the same league. And what I'm getting at is the gold stars that all happened through the EX series. So my reasoning for that is it's like this one-off sort of hit from Pokemon that came out during, yes, the later Sun and Moon sets, but also just it reached this new height for Sword and Shield. And here's a big word for me, because down in Australia, they like to think we're a bit stupid down in Australia. I promise we're not. We're quite clever sometimes. But they reached this sort of ethereal level. Like they felt like they were almost, the Pokemon were on this different planet, or like, you know, it just had that feeling about that sort of avatar feeling from a lot of the Pokemon in these settings. Now, I really like the special illustration rares that are coming out in Scarlet and Violet, but they're not alternate arts. They have a different vibe to them. So I feel like this vibe that was captured during Sword and Shield era, we might not ever see again. And you could argue something quite similar happened during the Gold Star era from EX series, where you got this feeling that the Pokemon was sort of coming at you, like it was jumping out of the borders, and it was, you know, it was Gold Star. And what's really weird is the hit rates are actually quite similar. So that's what I wanted to sort of have a chat about. I know clearly Gold Stars have a heap lower population, particularly, of course, with PSA than what Sword and Shield alt arts do. So I know it's hard to make that comparison, and maybe I'm clutching at straws. But to give you an idea, Gold Stars were about 35% per booster box. So, you know, 1 in 2 to 3, but closer to 1 in 3 booster boxes had a Gold Star card. Now, oddly enough, and each set differs a little bit, and you've got to open so many booster boxes to even get the data. But to the best of my knowledge, it's very, very similar for a Sword and Shield alt art. It's close to, it's sort of 1 in 2 to 3 booster boxes, but more like same thing, about 36, 37%, I believe, of booster boxes will contain an alt art, which is pretty close to 1 in 3. So there's some similarities in pull rate data between Gold Star cards and alt arts from Sword and Shield. But anyway, moving along, spoken too much. I think there's a bit of a comparison there, and this is why I think some are undervalued. So number 10 in my list is the Urshifu V Rapid Strike from Battle Styles. Now, this isn't particularly the best looking card, but the price of it, if it goes down in a similar vein to Gold Star cards from that EX series, even some of the lesser known or lesser popular Pokemon still command a high price because it's a Gold Star. Now, we could argue maybe something similar, something similar down the track could happen with these alternate arts. And this is, I think, one of the cheapest, if not the cheapest alt art from the whole Sword and Shield block. It's currently $12.64. There's also only, we could argue it's a small PSA 10 population. There's only 460. You could also argue it's not that popular a card, so people might not send it in to get graded as much. But anyway, that's my number 10. Moving along, number 9, Lumineon V. Brilliant Stars, I think it's from, isn't it? Yeah, $16.50 currently. That's cheap alt art as well. And also, I think it's a nicer looking card than number 10 on the list that I had, Urshifu V, but also not a bad looking card. And currently, again, I shouldn't say only, but there is 657 PSA 10 copies of this card. So, you know, it's not up there as much as some of the others. Again, it's not a fan favorite Pokemon, so people don't send it in to get graded as often. But hey, not a bad pickup, I don't think. Number 9 there. Moving along, number 8, Beedrill V. Astral Radiance? Yeah, Astral Radiance. $22.99 currently. Now, again, I know this isn't the most fan favorite Pokemon, but it is one of the original 151. It could help add some weight to it with the new Scarlet and Violet 151 coming out, possibly. Again, maybe I'm clutching at straws, but possibly. Slightly higher PSA 10 population than number 9 and 10 on the list. It's currently got 1,216 PSA 10 copies. But again, at $23, I don't think it's a bad pickup. And again, just to clarify, these are all US dollars that I'm referring to here. Number 7 on the list, I really like this card, Unown V. It's got a bit of a different sort of vibe about it. You know, I remember the Neo sets when Unknown sort of started coming out, and they're a bit, yeah, but this adds a new spin and new life to that card. I don't think it's a bad looking card at all. Currently at $23.87, and there's 1,031 PSA 10 copies. Again, not a bad price though. $23, just over $23. Anyway, moving on, number 6. This is a good looking card, and I don't think it quite gets the love it deserves. And I know it's not the world's most popular Pokemon, but from Battle Styles and Empoleon V, this ranks number 6 for me as the, I suppose, most undervalued alt arts that you can currently get from Sword and Shield. It's pretty much bang on $30. There's 838 PSA 10 copies. So for a modern card, that's not too bad. I think it's got beautiful artwork. I love the sort of ninja style that we got going on from Empoleon. Really like the card. I think it's a good pickup at the price that it's at. And number 5, jumping into number 5, Mew V from Fusion Strike. This is a sweet looking card, a really, really nice looking card. The artwork sort of pops out in it. It's colorful. I really like the Fusion Strike set. Current price, you're looking at $33.26, but there is over 1,500 PSA 10 copies, so you could argue it's been graded pretty heavily. Even in modern standards, it's still pretty heavy, but a beautiful card, and for only $33, like, it's such a nice looking card for a $33 card, so I don't think it's a bad pickup. Number 4 on my list, and I'm a sucker for Chilling Reign, but this Zeraora, however you want to pronounce it, Zeraora, I'm going to call it V, is such a nice looking card. You know, what's the slogan for Chilling Reign? Rule the Tundra or something like that, something along those lines. So, you know, Zeraora V, looking out over the ice caps there, man, that's a good looking card. $52.88. And there's 1,113 PSA 10 copies. One thing I didn't want to point out, with all these graphs, you'll notice they're straight off TCG Player, of course, in US dollars, but they're all pretty either flatline over the last 12 months or taken a little bit of a dip. So, like, I don't think that's a bad thing. The supply for Sword and Shield is getting to that point where, other than, of course, the reprints that have just come out for Lost Origin and Silver Tempest, it's going to get to that point across the next 12 months that, you know, there isn't going to be too much more left to be opened in maybe 12 to 18 months' time. It'll start moving into that sealed collection sort of position, and then it'll be a little bit harder to find and open. So it's going to get to the stage where these PSA 10 copies, you know, this rapid growth of grading cards is going to start slowing down as supply starts slowing down. Number 3 on the list, and this one has been heavily graded and it still commands a high price, but I just love the look of it. The artwork is phenomenal. The Dragonite V from Evolving Skies, what is it, about $92 or thereabouts. There is, however, 2,924 PSA 10 copies. So like I was saying, it has been heavily graded, but I'm just a sucker for this card. At $90, it is a beautiful Dragonite card. I still think it's just a slight bit undervalued. So that's number 3 for me. Number 2, moving along, And I know it's been called this a million times by heaps of other people, and people are probably sick of hearing it. But the Roadrunner, the Galarian Zapdos V, this is pick number 2 for me. It's currently at $42.59. It has taken a bit of a dip, I think, over the last 12 months. So it seems like really good value at $42.59. I shouldn't say only, but there is only 1,032 copies again. So it's not heavy, like it's not 5,000 or 9,000 or 10,000 like Charizard, some of these Charizard Vs from Champions Path. So, if you compare that, 1,000 versus 10,000, it's actually not too bad for a PSA 10, and I think it's one hell of a good looking card. Number 1, I think this is a bit of a sleeper, and let's cue the excitement. But my number 1 is Celebi V from Fusion Strike. I guess there's a little bit of a soft spot for me in Celebi. It was the first Gold Star card I ever pulled when I was a teenager, so there's a bit of a soft spot for me there with Celebi, but I also think this is just a stunning artwork. And you sort of get that argument, is it the most popular Pokemon? It's almost like, to me, one of those middle tier sort of Pokemon. When you're looking at Fusion Strike, which is really a Psychic Ghost sort of set, of course you've got the Gengar as the most popular, then you've got cards like like the Mew in the set, and then Celebi sort of falls third fiddle to those two cards. But hey, I think it's super cheap at just under $35. The only thing that maybe hurts a little bit is there is 1,900 or just over 1,900 PSA 10 copies. But hey, like I was saying, all of these, the PSA reports aren't too bad. I wouldn't stress about 1,000 or 2,000 PSA 10s. I would stress about some of these Charizards that have 10,000 or 11,000 or 12,000 PSA 10 copies. Like that's just getting crazy. I think 1,000 PSA 10s, especially as we move forward into Scarlet and Violet and people keep grading and grading and grading, 800 or 1,000 won't be too bad a number. And I just wanted to compare that to rolling all the way back to the point I was making at the start of the video with Gold Stars. If we bring up Holon Phantoms, which had 2 Gold Stars, both the Mewtwo and the Gyarados, I'll bring them up on the screen here. The Mewtwo had 100 or has 117 PSA 10s, whereas the Gyarados, which seems a heap harder to grade, the ratio of 9s to 10s on the Gyarados is lean. There's only 35 PSA 10 copies. And if we look at the price of these two cards, the last sold Mewtwo Gold Star was about 4,000 US, whereas the Gyarados was about 11,000 US. So clear indication, and I don't think you can argue that Mewtwo is more popular than Gyarados, or Gyarados is more popular than Mewtwo. Arguably, maybe the Gyarados with that Delta species look about it is a slightly nicer looking Gold Star. But I think the price difference between these two cards is predominantly from that PSA 10 population. So with these alt arts, you could argue that, the lower the PSA 10 population, maybe the more value it could collect or gain in the future. Hey, it's hard to tell. It's early days. But I think my top 10, there's my top 10. I think they're all pretty good pickups currently at the price that they're at. I think they should see some sort of similar trend to what we've seen in Sun and Moon as we really start getting deeper into the Scarlet and Violet set. Again, question from the start. What do you think is the most undervalued alt art from Sword and Shield? Would love to hear from you guys. Thanks again for watching. Ta.